In life, there are times when a woman must walk alone, not because she desires solitude, but because her path demands a unique strength, a strength that doesn't come from crowds, but from silence. Society often pushes us to seek validation through friendships and popularity, convincing us that we need others to prove our worth. However, the woman who walks alone finds her value within herself and from God, not from others' opinions or support. In Psalm 46 verse 5, we read, "God is within her, she will not fall, God will help her at the break of day." This verse reminds us that true strength is found in the presence of God. When He is within her, she can stand firm, even when others fall. Today, we'll explore the powerful qualities of a woman who walks alone. But before we continue, please give this video a like so we can keep sharing these messages. Now, let's delve deeper into the unique strength found in walking alone, especially for women. Independence and self-reliance are not qualities that simply appear, they are forged over time through experiences, challenges, and often, loneliness. A woman who chooses to stand on her own, without needing others' approval, doesn't merely survive, she thrives. Her strength doesn't come from those around her, it comes from within. Our society tends to celebrate friendship and unity, as though having people constantly by your side defines your worth. But a woman who walks alone has discovered that true power lies in self-sufficiency. She doesn't need a crowd or a tribe to determine her purpose or guide her steps. Instead, she learns to rely on God, knowing that only He can provide the strength she needs. This self-reliance is not a rejection of relationships, it's an understanding that relationships do not define her. She knows that she doesn't need friends or validation to understand her worth because her worth is something defined by God. Psalm 46 verse 5 tells us, God is within her, she will not fall, God will help her at the break of day. In this verse, we see the essence of her strength. She doesn't rely on what others can give her, she relies on what God has placed within her. When she faces challenges, she doesn't run to others for answers or support. Instead, she looks within, trusting her instincts, resilience, and experiences. She has built this strength over time, and it has set her apart. She doesn't crumble when people leave or when circumstances become difficult. Instead, she taps into a deep well of resilience, knowing that her strength is divinely rooted and that she is never truly alone. She understands that the only one she can truly rely on, apart from God, is herself, and this knowledge gives her an unbreakable confidence. This resilience is not just about endurance, it's about growth. She has learned to navigate life without constantly needing others' validation or approval. She makes her own decisions, shapes her own life, and remains steadfast in her values and vision. Walking alone demands courage, but it also grants her freedom. It's easy to follow the crowd, to get swept up in what everyone else is doing, but an independent woman cares more about what aligns with her than what is convenient. She has the self-awareness and confidence to make choices that reflect her true nature, even if those choices lead her down a solitary path. Through this independence, she discovers a new kind of strength, one that is not shaken by the absence of others. Her inner strength grows in her solitude, a strength that does not waver regardless of who comes or goes. For a woman like this, solitude is not an emptiness, it is a source of empowerment. It allows her to focus on herself, her purpose, and her journey with God. In the comments, declare, "I walk with God," as God declares He is your firm foundation. Think of Ruth, who stood alone after her husband's death and chose to leave her homeland to stay with Naomi. Ruth walked a lonely and uncertain path, but her strength was unwavering, rooted in loyalty, determination, and her faith in God. Similarly, a woman who values her independence knows that walking alone doesn't make her weak, it makes her strong, self-sufficient, and full of purpose. She doesn't need validation because, with God within her, she knows she will not fall. Her strength comes from God, and in solitude, she finds the space to reflect, grow, and listen to His voice. In that stillness, she realizes that her worth and strength are gifts that only God can give. In a world that constantly measures us by the people around us, a woman who walks alone has learned something rare and powerful. She knows her worth. Her value is not defined by the number of friends she has, how popular she is, or how many people seek her out. Her worth is something she has discovered deep within, and it does not fluctuate based on anyone else's opinions or approval. This quiet understanding of her inner value allows her to move through life with a unique strength and grace. In the silence, she finds her confidence, and in her solitude, she finds her peace. Knowing that God is with her, she walks forward, unafraid and empowered, embracing the strength that comes from walking alone with faith. Society often tells us that we need others to validate us to feel important, but a woman who understands her worth knows that no one else can define her value. She has come to realize that her worth is a reflection of her relationship with God and who He says she is. In 1 Peter 2 verse 9, we are reminded, "But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession." This verse serves as her foundation, reminding her that she is precious in God's eyes. No one else's opinion matters when she knows she is chosen, cherished, and loved by her Creator. This understanding of self-worth frees her from the pressure to conform or please others merely for the sake of acceptance. She does not seek validation from people who fail to truly see her. Instead, she has learned to define herself by her own values, faith, and unique purpose. This confidence allows her to live authentically without feeling the need to prove herself to anyone. For a woman who knows her worth, relationships are not there to fill a void or prove her value. She values quality over quantity, understanding that true friendships are rare and take time. She patiently waits for meaningful relationships that support and uplift her. She would rather walk alone than surround herself with people who don't share her values. A woman who knows her worth is not afraid of solitude because her value isn't based on the number of people around her. She understands that her identity is rooted in God's love, not in society's approval. This mindset brings her an inner peace. She doesn't rush into relationships or cling to people out of insecurity. She is wise enough to recognize when a relationship is no longer healthy or supportive, and she is not afraid to walk away. She doesn't fear letting go because she knows her worth remains intact, regardless of who stays or leaves. Her value is unshakable, grounded in her identity as someone deeply loved by God. In valuing herself, she sets healthy boundaries. She refuses to compromise her peace or integrity just to fit in or be accepted. She knows her worth, and thus she is selective about who gets access to her life. Her self-respect acts as a filter, allowing her to choose relationships that uplift her spirit and encourage her to reach her full potential. She doesn't chase popularity or the appearance of having many connections. Instead, she seeks depth, truth, and authenticity. A woman who knows her worth also has the unique strength to stand firm in her values, undeterred by external pressures. Society often tells us that we need others to validate us to feel important, but a woman who understands her worth knows that no one else can define her value. She has come to realize that her worth is a reflection of her relationship with God and who He says she is. In 1 Peter 2 verse 9, we are reminded, "But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession." This verse serves as her foundation, reminding her that she is precious in God's eyes. No one else's opinion matters when she knows she is chosen, cherished, and loved by her Creator. This understanding of self-worth frees her from the pressure to conform or please others merely for the sake of acceptance. She does not seek validation from people who fail to truly see her. Instead, she has learned to define herself by her own values, faith, and unique purpose. This confidence allows her to live authentically without feeling the need to prove herself to anyone. For a woman who knows her worth, relationships are not there to fill a void or prove her value. She values quality over quantity, understanding that true friendships are rare and take time. She patiently waits for meaningful relationships that support and uplift her. She would rather walk alone than surround herself with people who don't share her values. A woman who knows her worth is not afraid of solitude because her value isn't based on the number of people around her. She understands that her identity is rooted in God's love, not in society's approval. This mindset brings her an inner peace. She doesn't rush into relationships or cling to people out of insecurity. She is wise enough to recognize when a relationship is no longer healthy or supportive, and she is not afraid to walk away. She doesn't fear letting go because she knows her worth remains intact, regardless of who stays or leaves. Her value is unshakable, grounded in her identity as someone deeply loved by God. In valuing herself, she sets healthy boundaries. She refuses to compromise her peace or integrity just to fit in or be accepted. She knows her worth, and thus she is selective about who gets access to her life. Her self-respect acts as a filter, allowing her to choose relationships that uplift her spirit and encourage her to reach her full potential. She doesn't chase popularity or the appearance of having many connections. Instead, she seeks depth, truth, and authenticity. A woman who knows her worth also has the unique strength to stand firm in her values, undeterred by external pressures. In her solitude, she discovers that God is her closest companion and most reliable guide. This trust doesn't develop overnight. It grows through seasons of dependence on God. These are seasons where she has to walk paths that feel uncertain, sometimes lonely, but where she learns to listen to His voice as she faces challenging decisions or moments of doubt. She doesn't rush to seek approval or advice from those around her. Instead, she turns to God in prayer, inviting Him to lead her. Proverbs 3 verses 5-6 speaks of this reliance on God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. A woman who trusts in God's guidance doesn't need constant reassurance from others because she has learned to find her security in His presence. She understands that people may change, circumstances may shift, but God's faithfulness remains constant. This truth gives her a confidence that isn't easily shaken, a faith that God's plan for her is good and that He will direct her steps, even when the path isn't always clear. In her solitude, she has learned the value of listening to God's voice. Life is full of noise, opinions, expectations, and the continuous flow of information from the world around us, but solitude creates space for clarity. A woman who walks alone is often less distracted, allowing her to develop a sensitivity to God's guidance. She knows that in stillness, God speaks, and she cherishes the moments when she can hear Him without interruption. Practicing listening to God's guidance gives her a sense of purpose and confidence in her choices. She no longer needs to look around to see what everyone else is doing. Instead, she focuses on what God is calling her to do. She is content with God's unique purpose for her, even if it looks different from the path others are walking. Her trust in God is not selective. She doesn't rely on Him only in times of crisis or when she feels lost. Her dependence on God is woven into every aspect of her life. When faced with decisions, she prays for wisdom and direction. When confronted with challenges, she seeks strength and peace from God. Her relationship with God is her foundation, and from that foundation, she finds the courage to move forward, knowing she is never alone. This deep-rooted faith enables her to stand firm, even when others waver, and to continue her journey with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing she walks with God every step of the way. The story of Mary, the mother of Jesus, serves as a beautiful example of unwavering faith. When the angel told her she would give birth to the Son of God, Mary must have been filled with questions, uncertainties, and perhaps even fear. Yet, her response was simple and full of trust. "I am the Lord's servant," she said. "May your word to me be fulfilled." Luke 1 verse 38. Mary didn't rely on the approval or understanding of others. She placed her faith in God's plan, even when it seemed beyond her comprehension. Like Mary, a woman who trusts in God's guidance moves forward with faith, even when she doesn't have all the answers. One of the most challenging aspects of trusting in God's guidance is learning to prioritize His voice over the opinions and judgments of others. A woman who walks alone often faces criticism or misunderstanding because her path may look different from what people expect. But instead of bending to the opinions of others, she remains true to what she knows God has placed in her heart. She understands that people's approval is fleeting, but God's approval is eternal. The willingness to follow God's direction, even when others don't understand, requires courage. She may choose a career, lifestyle, or ministry path that others don't understand or support, but her confidence isn't rooted in human understanding, it's grounded in her relationship with God. Consider the story of the prophet Deborah, a judge in Israel. Deborah trusted in God's guidance, even when it meant stepping into an uncommon role for women at the time. She led with wisdom, authority, and a profound sense of God's purpose, even when others may have questioned her position. Like Deborah, a woman who trusts in God's guidance finds strength in knowing that He has equipped her uniquely for her calling, regardless of what others may think. Trusting in God's guidance often means walking by faith, not by sight. A woman who chooses to walk alone learns to embrace this truth because she knows God's plans are often larger than what she can see or understand in the moment. She holds on to faith that even when the path seems uncertain, God is working behind the scenes to arrange everything for her good. This faith doesn't mean she never experiences doubt or fear. She is human. But in moments of uncertainty, she reminds herself of God's promises and clings to His word, believing that His timing is perfect, that He sees what she cannot, and that His plans for her are good, even if they don't align with her own expectations. Her life becomes a testament to 2 Corinthians 5 verse 7, for we walk by faith, not by sight. She doesn't need to see the entire picture to trust that God is guiding her. Part of trusting in God's guidance is learning to surrender control. A woman who walks alone has often learned to be strong and independent, yet she also understands the importance of surrendering to God's will. Trusting God means letting go of her own plans and accepting His, even when they look different from what she envisioned. She has discovered that true peace doesn't come from controlling every aspect of life, but from resting in God's presence and trusting His direction. In her understanding that God is in control, she finds peace and surrender, knowing that letting go isn't a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. She recognizes that God's wisdom is far above hers, and His perspective is eternal. By placing her trust in Him, she experiences a peace that can only come through surrender. Her faith grows as she learns to release control, understanding that God's plans are far greater than anything she could arrange herself. When she trusts in God's guidance, she realizes her life has a profound purpose. She doesn't need to chase after the paths of others or conform to society's expectations. Instead, she is focused on fulfilling the calling that God has given her. Her choices reflect her faith, and she is intentional about where she invests her time, energy, and heart. This kind of faith transforms her life from merely surviving to truly living with purpose. She lives each day with meaning, knowing that God is directing her steps. Her faith propels her actions, and her actions testify to her trust in God. She becomes an example to others of a life led by faith instead of fear, moving forward with confidence because she knows who goes before her. When a woman walks alone, her journey may look different, even challenging, but it is marked by trust. She has placed her faith in God's guidance, not in her own understanding or the opinions of others. Her strength, identity, and purpose all stem from her relationship with God. She walks by faith, allowing God to shape her path, knowing that as long as He leads, she is exactly where she needs to be. Through this surrender, she finds freedom and peace that aren't dependent on circumstances or the approval of others. Her life becomes a testament to the power of a surrendered heart, one that trusts in God's sovereignty and wisdom. Her faith doesn't mean she is free from trials, but it gives her the resilience to face them with grace, knowing that every step is part of a divine plan. She embraces the journey, confident that God's timing and guidance are perfect, allowing her to live boldly and authentically, anchored in the assurance that God is with her every step of the way. In this trust, she not only finds strength, but also a deep joy, as her life aligns with God's purpose for her, bringing glory to Him in everything she does. Ultimately, her faith in God sustains, empowers, and distinguishes her. She is strong, wise, and confident, not because she has all the answers, but because she knows the one who does. She trusts that He is guiding her every step, and in that trust, she finds peace, purpose, and true freedom. A woman who walks alone carries a unique strength, self-worth, and deep faith in God that make her resilient and unshakable. Her strength is not defined by those around her, but by the one who dwells within her. Her value does not rely on society's standards or others' approval. It is rooted in her identity as someone loved by God. Her path is not guided by the opinions of the majority, but by her unwavering trust in God's wisdom and faithfulness. For the woman who walks alone, her journey is not one of isolation or self-sufficiency, but a journey of restoration, purpose, and peace, anchored in her relationship with God. She is never without companionship, for God is always by her side, guiding her and strengthening her for the journey ahead. Let this be an encouragement to all of us, whether we walk alone or alongside others. Seek strength in God, know your worth in His love, and trust His unfailing guidance. May we all find the courage to walk boldly and confidently, knowing that as long as God is with us, we will never walk alone.